Welcome back. Week 5, only 2 more weeks to go. You are in the home stretch. You can do this, gang. So this week, we turn our attention to funding in community colleges. Wow, this is a hot topic, huh? So we are currently in Louisiana looking at a tremendous shortfall in our budget, and as well as a state constitution that only allows cuts from higher education and health care. So certainly I think that this is at the forefront of many, many people's minds, especially in the state of Louisiana. But even though a critical issue here, certainly a continued critical issue nationwide in terms of how to fund public, in particular, higher education. The community colleges, as we learned last week, are in sort of a unique position in terms of their mission and in terms of their educational delivery services. There is a strong partnership between business and industry, and there is a growing sense of responsibility to support, especially community college education in terms of those training opportunities and educational opportunities to get people employed and back into the workforce. One of my past supervisors, Dr. Joe May, who's now out of the Dallas Community College system, used to always say that community colleges are about rebuilding America's middle class. They are about assisting those who have fallen on economic hard times and helping retrain them and retool their skills so that they can find careers where they can make a livable wage, where they can go on to earn an income that will help them support and sustain their families, and in addition to that, move them back in terms of economic status back into that middle class. It's pretty critical. So, the funding streams for community college is also very vital. We're going to look at a couple of different things this week. In particular, in terms of funding, obviously, for public community colleges, state support for a long time has been sort of the underlying or the foundational support for the institution. We are seeing that change very rapidly. Alone in the state of Louisiana, many colleges have gone from being over 50-60% state supported to in the 20s, and some in the 30s. So it is a drastic decline. Funding for higher education is being continually pushed out nationwide to families and to students through tuition and fee increases. And that's something that I don't think we're going to see. I would argue that what we are looking at and what we are actually living through at this point is a true change in the philosophical beliefs around higher education. What you saw in the past was the philosophy that higher education is truly for the common good. That the idea that we're going to the tide that raises all boats type of thing is that by getting more people into higher education, that is a community good, that is a societal good, and that it uplifts the entire society. One of the things I think that we are seeing right now is a shift in that belief, and with that shift comes the belief that individual students and the impact to individual families is taking precedent, and therefore those individuals need to take more responsibility for paying for higher education. So it's a very interesting dynamic that we're going to take a look at this week. Some of the things that we're going to talk about are reduced state support. We're also going to take a look at the new venture many community colleges are going into in terms of fundraising and foundations. Probably 20, 30 years ago, you might not have seen a whole lot of community colleges that were operating a private foundation or were engaging in private fundraising. But I think if you look around the nation today, you will see that has significantly changed. That leadership within higher education, in particular the community colleges, see that they are going to have to look to external funding streams in order to continue to fulfill the mission of the community college. So with that, we're looking at state support and fundraising. We're also going to look at fund generation. One of the things that a lot of community colleges have moved to is looking at ways in which they can generate their own funds through auxiliary services. Taking a look at, and I'll just stop here and say, a number of private institutions. I think that what you're beginning to see is as state support has decreased, many of the community colleges and probably public higher education institutions are beginning to take on traits that are resemble the private higher education sector. So looking at, in terms of auxiliary services, those contracts that community colleges have, whether they be for vending machines or food service or bookstore services, or even opportunities with facilities to be able to lease or to be able to host in groups, to generate revenue, additional revenue for the institution in order to be able to meet the budgetary demands of providing this education. That included, we talked last week about the role of business and industry. Certainly community colleges are looking for more what we call private-public partnerships, asking private business and industry to step up to the plate and to help support and underwrite programs, courses, as well as sometimes facilities and improvements to the campus as a whole, given that the money is not flowing necessarily from the state or the federal government like it used to. In addition to that, I think some of the things that we need to look at with respect to funding higher education moving forward are grant opportunities. Last week we talked about the TACT grant and the opportunities that's providing to some community colleges. We also talk a little bit about what we call braided funding in higher education, which is taking funding from a variety of different sources and looking for ways to integrate that funding to complete and meet a goal. And so that is also becoming a critical piece and something that you'll hear a lot if you talk to individuals in community college sectors. So probably the last piece that I will mention, we won't delve into it very, very deeply, but I think it is something that you all should be aware of and at least have on your radar, is that as we move forward in this climate, one of the things that is going to be a reality for many community colleges and institutions of higher education is the need to pay very close attention, to monitor, and to be able to understand how institutions are using their financial aid dollars. That federal aid that is flowing through the student to the community college is becoming vitally important. I think when we had an era of state support, the ability for a student to be able to pay for their tuition and fees wasn't necessarily as critical as it is today, where, as we talked about earlier, you know, the sort of the push down of responsibility for funding higher education onto our students and our parents. So that's something else that I think is important that community colleges are going to have to really pay very close attention to in the upcoming years and moving forward. With respect to week 5 and assignments, let's take a look. So you have a couple of videos to watch, including this one. And then as well, one of the things that we have, I'm very, again, excited about, you have a video to watch called Financing the Future. And this video is actually presented to you by Dr. Monty Sullivan, who is currently the president of the Louisiana and Community Technical College System. So he is in charge of all of the community and technical colleges in the state of Louisiana. Dr. Sullivan comes to us with a tremendous background, having worked in community colleges most of his professional career, and having served at the state level in community and technical college education, also in Virginia. Dr. Sullivan is nationally recognized in the area of community colleges, and I think we're very, very lucky to have him take a few minutes out of his day to do a video to talk to us about the future funding of higher education and in particular community colleges. So I encourage you to take some time to watch that video, and I hope you gain a lot from it because I think he has a lot to share with us. In addition to that, this week your issue paper working draft is due. Very important. And so be sure to be working on that, be thinking about that, be expanding on your topics, proofing, doing a little more proofing of the paper, but that is going to be due this Sunday for my initial review. I hope that with those papers, what I plan to do is to be able to provide you with some feedback and just to make sure that you're on the right track, heading in the right direction, and that you will hopefully successfully complete this course. So I hope you all have a good week. I hope that you enjoy this module of the American Community College. See you next time.